Derby Gateway Caravan Park. Just pulled up here for a couple of nights. Heading out shortly for a flight overseas and a bit of a cruise. More of that to follow. This is probably as far north as we're travelling on this part of the leg, though as you'll probably know, I've been watching the videos. We've been to Derby a few times before. After we leave here, we start our journey slowly south, though even on that trip we'll probably be going south and coming back north. Our next location after here is Anna Plains Station, then we're shooting down to Catered Island for a week, then we're coming back up around the Exmouth area. Eventually we'll end up Margaret River mid to late November, and then depending on what's happening over the east states we'll start heading east. If you're a keen observer, while I've been taking this short part of the video, you'll observe this place is almost empty. And we checked in yesterday and it's the 4th of September at the moment. When we checked in yesterday there were 26 people leaving and 10 people coming in, and the office manager was saying that it's the end of the season for them really, and they'll probably close the park up or just about close it up in the not too distant future. It's getting a little bit warm up here, I suppose, for those people coming up from southern climes. I think it peaked about 34-35 degrees yesterday in the shade. Earlier on this video I suggested we're going overseas. Oh, these are our, well, they're not international flight planes, but overseas planes. We'll actually be landing on the water at our cruise ship, which you'll find out a bit more a little bit later. Horizontal Falls Seaplane Adventures offer a bunch of tours out here to Horizontal Falls. You can do day trips. And like we are, we're doing it overnighter. They don't serve alcohol, so got a few beers and a thing. Hopefully we've got somewhere to chilly them up. We've seen at the airport 3 planes left at the same time. There's a couple more planes up here to the left as well, so it's a pretty big operation. And you would have seen the 2 cruise ships as we came in as well. I think they're Cessna 206 caravans, amphibious of course. Love the smell of burnt out turf. We're in one of the fast boats now. It's got 4 Yamahas on the back of it. Have to wear life jacket while you're on board. No life safety belts or anything like that. But they did say in the briefing, whatever you take on board, expect to get wet. So we're doing 2 trips on the boat today. One is through the Horizon Falls, another one's up a creek up in front of us. Love it. So there's second houseboat. It's got quarters on the bottom for our paying guests. be their fishing, but you can do fishing charters out here too.
Coming up to the first gap that makes up the falls, and this one is known as the wide gap. Now it's called the wide gap because it's bigger than the other gap. It's not actually all that wide at all. It's only about 20 meters across. It's about 40 meters deep the whole way through this area. So from where we are in through that gap and out to the other side, it's all 40 meters. Now what's currently happening here is that we have an outgoing tide in Talbot Bay. Now Talbot Bay is some of the biggest tides in the whole world, and because of that they move very fast. Now the tide moves so fast that water can move away from the gap much faster than water can move through the gap. This is known as a tidal pinch, where it's actually a higher tide on the other side than it is on this side. And that's how the falls are created. The water from the higher level drains down to the lower level. It creates quite a lot of white water and a lot of turbulence inside there as well. Now what I'm going to do first, folks, I'm going to nose on in towards the bottom end of the gap so you can get a few photos from inside here. And at that point then I'm going to turn the boat around, I'm going to start driving this thing like I stole it, okay? So that's when you're going to want to pull it tight and enjoy the ride.
Maybe 2 foot difference, maybe.
wide gap, and now we're in a body of water that's known as the Middle Sea in Talbot Bay. Now this Middle Sea is about 7 kilometers from one end to the other, and it's about 100 meters wide, and there's only one way in and one way out from here into Talbot Bay, and that's through that wide gap over there. So this area here takes quite a lot longer to actually reach its low tide in comparison to Talbot Bay, which is plenty of room to move quite freely away from that gap. Now what we're going to do is make our way over to the narrow gap. Now the narrow gap is the more impressive of the two, and also the more dangerous of the two for exactly the same reason. Now each day this gap fills up to levels where it's unsafe to travel through there. Now our safe limits for travelling through this gap are roughly around half a metre of change, whereas currently we're going to be looking at a difference of around 1.5 metres from one bay to the next. So currently we're not going to be able to make our way through this gap. And that's why I brought you over here now, is because this is when it also looks its most spectacular as well, is when it is too big to travel through. And that's why we're over here right now. And what I'm going to do is make my way over to the gap, and we're going to nose on in towards the bottom. Now the gap itself is about 7.5 metres across. And just to put that into perspective, this boat is about 4 metres from side to side. Now the water is travelling through there is travelling at roughly 35 kilometres an hour, and it's mostly all pushing at the wall. And that's exactly why we're not going to be going through. Now when we get inside there, take note of the fact that all this water is pushing from the left all the way into the wall on the right hand side. And it's travelling, as I said, at about 35 kilometres an hour to the side. So it's very dangerous to actually try and navigate through. But we're going to get in as close as we possibly can to this gap. So I'm going to nose on in there. And just a reminder again, please do not stand up while we're inside here, because you're going to see quite a lot of whirlpools and bubble ups, things like that are going to happen all around the boat pretty randomly as well. But yeah, enjoy.
You can see the difference here. Wowee. Pretty impressive. Henry, over to the boss.
Perfect. Is it on?
Book one of these trips, they'll sell you a video package, $69, which include a video from this trip. There's a GoPro up the front and up behind us. Or if you don't look at that option when you buy the trip, you can do that when you're out here.
So you can see why we don't take the boat through when it looks like this. There's just too much happening that's pretty unpredictable. It's too dangerous to do it. And as I said, that water's traveling about 35 kilometers an hour. And with the size that it currently is, it means there's upwards of 1.5 million litres every single second going through that gap. 1.5 million litres a second. It's incredible how fast that water moves. We're only looking at the surface, but this drops down to 40 meters and the water is moving at the same speed all the way to the bottom. So there's quite a lot going on that you can't even really see through here. Now the biggest differences we'll ever get inside in that gap can actually get you about 3 meters of change from one bay to the next. But that only occurs just a couple of times a year when we have what are known as king tides. King tides are the biggest tides you can possibly get here. Now today our tide is only about 7 meters, whereas when we have our king tides we can get an 11 meter change. So that's where there's quite a lot more movement inside the tides as well. But these will eventually change around, so what's going to happen soon is that the tide is going to change direction, start moving its way back in again. As it does that, Talbot Bay becomes equal with this middle sea right here. And then the wide gap stops flowing. Then water starts to make its way from Talbot Bay into the middle sea, as well as still feeding from the inland sea, which is over past the narrow gap. And as the water pours from both directions, it begins to fill the middle sea quite quickly, and then the narrow gap will actually stop flowing as well. The narrow gap stops absolutely dead still, looks like a puddle or a mill pond, and it stays that way for around 30 seconds. Then after 30 seconds it changes direction, it flows the other way and then increases again, but just backwards to the last time. Now the rate of increase between the two bays is roughly around 1 inch every minute. So we can see 30 centimeters of change in just 15 minutes. So that means that there's a very short period of time we're actually able to make our way through that gap. And that's when we have our change in tides, which happen every 6 hours. So every 6 hours we've got roughly a 40-minute window that we can make it through that gap. So the majority of the time it's inaccessible, so it's about 5 hours, or 1 hour out of every 6 that we're able to get through there. So it's very difficult to actually make your way through that gap. But what I'm going to do now, we're going to nose back in towards the bottom end of the gap. We'll check it out again, get another few photos in there. Then we'll do a couple more fun laps in through the wide gap before we head back to the pontoon. But has anyone got any questions at all about the fall so far?
Well, shark feeding time. There's a little hole here where they come in and have a little nudge. Look. Just on the top of Talbot Bay.
Alrighty, so we just slowed down that way into the entrance of Cyclone Creek here. Like I said, right up the eastern end of Talbot Bay. So we're just going to start doing a slower cruise through this gap in the rocks out to the left-hand side of us here. But firstly, Cyclone Creek gets its name because it is one of the better cyclone anchorages or shelters found anywhere in the Kimberley. So it's because of all these high cliffs and hills that we have surrounding this bay area, really provide a lot of protection from strong winds and cyclones. Also being about 10 metres deep at low tide, really perfect for anchoring as well.
Is that where you put the...
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So in the past, Pasquale Pearls used to have a large pearling operation back out in Talbot Bay. Now they had to leave here in 2006, so their problem here was they were creating those flawless pearls far too quickly. So a really pristine environment here for creating those pearls. They were creating them too quickly and essentially flooding the market, so reducing the price of their own product. So they had to reduce their operations. They left here in 2006, and in leaving here they left behind a couple of moorings. So the first mooring's back out where the houseboat is situated, the second one out to the right here, and there's the third one just a little bit further on up the creek. So this one out to our right is currently just fuel for our seaplanes and for these fast boats. But during the few months of the year that we don't operate in the wet season, we'll actually dismantle and tow that entire houseboat and pontoon setup into here and reassemble it onto that mooring there. So that takes about 3 or 4 days. We'll pull it apart into about 6 pieces, tow it in here using these fast boats and leave it for the wet season. And hope it'll still be when we get back. So we are going to continue on through this gap in the rocks, folks. In terms of wildlife around this area, not really too many larger animals on the ground. This terrain is just simply too rugged with all these high cliffs and hills for anything large. So we get smaller marsupials, we do get the black-footed rock wallaby from time to time, but a lot of the wildlife we get is up in the air or in the water. So our 3 main predatory birds are the white-bellied seagull, the osprey and the Brumby kite. We quite often see those circling around this creek system. And then in the water, plenty of fish species, so obviously our prize barramundi, fingermark, mangrove jack, all those tasty ones. And then all the same sort of sharks that we'll get out in Talbot Bay. So this is 99.9% salt water fed from the ocean. So those tawny nurse sharks, the bull sharks, black tip reef sharks, hammerheads, tigers, they will all make their way up this creek system as well. And then we do get the occasional saltwater crocodile. It's not infested with them, but there are a couple around. They're definitely present, but really hard to spot. Sometimes easier at lower tide in my banks. But I will continue on. I'll head through that gap there. If you do need to stand up to get a better photo or a better view, feel free. Just ask that you sit down and see my clock.
called the inland sea because it's the furthest inland, and again, there's no creativity at all with any of these names. There's only one way in and one way out from here, and that's through that gap over there. So there's no other passage like it's all mainland Australia exit along. It's about 4 kilometers from one end to the other as well. What I'm going to do while we're up here is I'll pass by on the top side of the gap so you can get a few photos from up here. Then we'll do another couple of fun laps in through, then we'll head back for some sunset drinks. Okay?
So we're going down backwards. Give you a tour of our cabin entry door. We're in the Montgomery top. Air conditioning window. Looks like a double bed. You do need to bring your own toiletries, including a towel. Though they did have some bath gel and stuff in the shower. So squeezy. Not squeezy as the train cabin though. I suppose depending on what sort of cabin you're getting. Time for a few drinks. So our accommodation, like at that end, there's a bar here, a table. This joins the other houseboat up here. That's where dinner's being served tonight. Drinks desk over there, drinks desk here. Bottom deck. This is probably a day use area for the day use people that come out, but they're not here. Nibbles. I'd say we've got our own drinks, but get into a few prawns and some cheese and stuff. To a brand new day on HMAS Horizontal Falls. Well, Horizontal Falls houseboat anyhow. Getting kicked out of our rooms at 6 o'clock this morning for breakfast. It's about 5:45 at the moment. The sun quite still hasn't poked its head up over the hills yet. Not too far away though. Bit breezy this morning. Cup of coffee. see it out the front here. The first plane's coming in for this morning. Okay, and this way. Plane behind it. Should be a third plane, not too far away. Looking for a plane with a tail Rego NUX. This one we'll be jumping on today. There's the third plane, just popped over the range. Well, head back down here. Probably have to grab my bag. We were told on the boat ride this morning that this operation was sold just recently. It used to be owned by a family, but now it's been bought by Venture Tours Australia or something like that.